Hello guys, you're welcome to chapter 4 of our cloud engineering technical training in Google Cloud Platform. So the last time out, we looked at virtual private cloud, which you're very familiar with. And we did a couple of things last time out in our chapter 3. We created virtual private cloud network using the Google Cloud Console and the Google Cloud Command Line interface. So today we're going to be delving into our chapter 4. And I'll just move on to the next slide for us to look at what we have today. Okay, cool. So the agenda for today is that we will integrate two key Google Cloud Platform services, Compute Engine and VPC Network. We are already familiar with what it means. In our chapter 2, we looked at Compute Engine and we went deep into Compute Engine. And we also touched Compute Engine slightly in our chapter 1. And of course, in chapter 3, we dedicated chapter 3 to virtual private cloud network. Okay, so that's our first agenda. And of course, we have our lab exercise, which we will also do. So without wasting much time, we can just begin. We'll move on to the next slide. I've made a short note on these two services. So I'll just give you like a short rundown or a short explanation of these two services. So as we already know, Compute Engine is a GCP service that allows you to access and use computing resources on the cloud. For example, you can create and manage virtual machines with different operating systems, Linux, Windows, etc. So you can create virtual machines with Linux distributions like Debian, Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, and the likes of them. So that's just what virtual machine is simply all about, and that's what Compute Engine provides. It's a service that allows us to set up this virtual machine and use them for whatever we need them for. Also, Virtual Private Cloud is another service in the Google Cloud Platform that allows you to create a private network environment within the cloud where you can set up and manage your resources like virtual machines. The Virtual Private Cloud networks allows you to control what can enter or leave your network. This is crucial for ensuring further security as it helps us to protect our resources from unauthorized access and potential threats. Cool. So you already saw that in the last chapter where we did a lot of stuff there. And so, yeah, that's just what it is about these two services. And so for the next slide, what do we have? So we have an example exercise which I've prepared for us before we start the main lab exercise. So I'll just let us go through the example exercise quickly. Okay. So for our example exercise, we have the first one, which is to create a VPC network with the following details. So I will do that. I'll just go to the Google Cloud Console, ensure that I have my project selected and I have my project email selected. And then I can just proceed to do the first one, which is I'll just go to the navigation menu right here, click on it, and go to VPC network and fill in the following details. So I click create VPC network and fill in the specification. For name, it says my network. And for subnet creation mode right here, it says custom. We should choose custom. So custom is already pre-selected. And for subnets, so I go to subnet section right here and fill in the following details. So for name of the subnet, I'm just going to say my subnet. And for the region, it says we should select US Central 1. US Central 1. This is it. And for the IP stack type, it is IPv4. It's already pre-selected. And for the IP range, it says we should impute 10.0.2.0, 10.0.2.0/24. And that's all it said. Then we'll leave other things as default and click create. And you can see that our virtual private cloud network is setting up. Awesome. So our VPC network has set up, and you can see under the name of the name column, we have our My Network, which is the name of the VPC we just created. And you see the mode is custom, and we have one subnet, which is the subnet we created inside of the network. So we can actually verify. We go into it and go to the subnet tab, and you see that my subnet is here, and the region is here, Central 1, and the IP range is also the correct one, which is 10.0.2.0/24. Okay, so that's it for the first example exercise. So we can just go to the next one, which is for us to set up a virtual machine with the following details. So the actual this example is simply saying that we should set up a virtual machine within the network which we just set up earlier. So we can do that right away. So I go back to my navigation menu and go to Compute Engine, click on Compute Engine, and click on Create Instance and fill in the following details as well. So for name, it says my VM. And for the region, it's US Central 1. So it's US Central 1 is already pre-selected. And the zone is any. So I ensure that I choose any. Remember what I told you about any when we looked into Compute Engine in chapter 2. So for the next detail is machine configuration. So it says we should choose general purpose and E2, which is already pre-selected for us. Then for the machine type, which is the next, is to select shared core and E2 medium. So it's already the pre-selected one. And for the boot disk, which is slightly down, so we go to the boot disk, click on change, and ensure we have the correct details. So for operating system, it's Debian. So Debian is the correct one. The version is Debian Bookworm x86/64. So we ensure that's the correct one. And for boot disk type, it is balanced persistent disk, which is correct. And the size is 10 gigabytes. So we confirm that is correct and click select. Then for the next detail, which is about networking, this is where the networking side comes in. So we go slide to the end of the page, which is here, and go to the advanced option, click on advanced, drop down advanced option. We drop down advanced options, and we also see networking and other things. So for the networking, we just drop down networking and ensure that we have the correct details selected as well. So for network, we go to network interfaces, which is here, network interfaces. And it says for network, we should select my network. So we drop down this default. We want to change it from the default to the VPC network we just set up. So we drop down the default selection there and change it. Click on the drop down and select my network. And you can see already for the subnet that our subnet has already been pre-selected. So if we had other subnets, we could actually just select from the drop down as well. So that is it. And that's all the instructions said. We leave everything as default again and click on create. So our VM is provisioning. So fantastic. So our VM has already been set up, so we can actually confirm. So we go into the VM to see the details. Click on it, and we can see the status is it's running, and we can just want to confirm the network. So we go down to network interfaces, and you can see we have our My Network selected with the correct subnet as well. Okay, that's cool. You can see other things as well if we want to. All right. So that's about it for the example exercise. So we can just continue to our main lab exercise in the next slide. All right. So the objectives of our lab exercise is to create compute engine VM in a virtual network with 2 subnets. So we can actually do that. It's a walk in the park for us right now. Okay, but we'll do it together. So the first example, it says we should create a VPC network with the following details. So it gives us the name and with 2 subnets. So we can do that. To do that, go back to our navigation menu, click on VPC network, and we click on create VPC network, and we can specify things. So for the first one, for the name is network 1, and the subnet creation mode is custom. For the first subnet, we have the name is my subnet 1. And for the region of this subnet, it says Europe West 10. So we look for Europe West 10 and select it. And the IP stack type is IPv4. It's already pre-selected. And the IP range this time is 10.0.0.0/24. So that's it for the first subnet. So as soon as that's done, we click done. And we go to the second subnet. So we can click on add subnet. So for the second subnet is my subnet 2 as the name. And the region of this subnet is also Europe West 10. And the IP stack type is IPv4. Well, leave it. And the range is 10.0.1.0. And the range is 10.0.1.0/24. So cool. And that's done. We click on done, and we see our 2 subnets already set up, ready to be set up. Okay. So we leave every other thing as default. Scroll down and click on the create button and allow Google Cloud to provision this for us. Cool. So we have our VPC network already created. As you can see, we have our network 1, custom mode, and 2 subnets. We can also verify. We go into it, go to the subnet tab, and we see 2 subnets in the correct region and with the correct IP range. Okay, so that's it for the first lab exercise. So the second lab exercise is for us to set up a virtual machine. So we create a virtual machine within our VPC network. Okay. So to do that, so let's just follow through the instructions. So it says create a compute engine virtual machine with the following details. Okay. So to do that, I'm just going to go back to navigation menu and click on compute engine. Okay. Click on create instance. And for the name, it says it's VM1. And for the region, it says is Europe West 10. So we go to Europe West 10, which is in Berlin, which is actually Berlin. And for the zone, Europe West 10C. So it's zone C. We choose on that, we click on that to select it. And we go to the next detail, which is machine configuration. So it's general purpose N2. So this time is slightly different from the example exercise. So we select general purpose, ensure it's the general purpose tab is selected, and we come down and say N2. And for the machine type, okay, we go to the machine type section, and it says standard N2 standard 4. So we drop it down, ensure standard is selected, then we look for N2 standard 4, which is the next one here. We select that and move to the next detail, which is boot disk. So we'll go to boot disk and click on change. And for the operating system, for the boot disk is Ubuntu. So we select Ubuntu, and the version, it says Ubuntu 20.04 LTS x86/64. So it's the pre-selected one as well. So we'll leave that and go to version and just change this to 15 gigabytes. Okay, so after that, we click select and move on to the next instruction detail, which is firewall. So firewall, it says it should allow HTTP and allow HTTPS traffic. So we allow both, and move on to the next thing, which is the networking, which we go to advanced section, drop down advanced section, drop down the networking and go to network interfaces and change the default one to the right network, which is network 1. And the subnet is my subnet 1. All right. Then everything is, that is all. So we click on done and click on the create button, because that is all the instructions that I said. Okay. So now you see our VM is provisioning, and we give it some time for it to be done. Awesome. So you see our VM is done. So we can actually confirm it. We can go into the VM to see details as well. So we go to the VM, we enter it, see the details tab. We can see it running. And the most interesting thing for us is to check the networking, which is right here. In the network interfaces, you see we have our network 1 selected, and the subnet is my subnet 1. So this is quite correct. You can also view all the details if you want to. And yeah, so that's it about this. And yeah, we've concluded our 2 lab exercises. I believe that's quite interesting for you, and you really love it yourself. I trust that. So that's it for our session for today. I hope it made sense. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. So you can always review the video again. And I know we're not able to have a regular session because I understand some of you are working and also schooling, which is really key for us to do these important things as well. So we can always, that's why it's important to make this video session so you can always stay up to date. Okay. So I hope to see you in the next chapter, which is chapter 5, which also promises to be quite exciting because we're going to be looking into identity and access management. Identity and access management, IAM. It's a pretty important part of being a cloud engineer, and very necessary for us to understand what that means. So identity and access management is our next chapter. All right. So I hope to see you there, encouraged, motivated, and focused. Thank you very much. If you have any concern, meanwhile, if you have any concern, please use our channel or use our direct message on Google Chats to reach out to me. Let me know. I'm always happy to assist you. Okay. Thank you very much for your time once more, and see you next time. Have a pleasant day, everybody. Bye. Ciao. Choose.